just pisses me off to see mainstream media pushing the leftist narratives that they do. It doesn't matter what happened prior to an event or who's involved. All that matter is that a black man was shot and killed by the police. That's all you hear. You can go to comment sections on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all of them, and just see that it's really all they care about is a black man was shot and killed by the police. Doesn't matter about anything else, and it's so prevalent and so obvious that when you go and check out mainstream media news outlets and read their comments, that's all they care about. A Phoenix man was shot opening his door. Yeah, I don't agree that he should have opened it with his gun, but should he have died? No, but no one wants to talk about that. But we'll talk about a criminal who's not supposed to be where he's at and the cops are called on him, gets shot 7 times not doing what he's supposed to do, and that makes headlines everywhere. So let's go through this article together, and I'll tell you why it's such bull.
Mola Lengi has the latest developments from Kenosha.
We do not wish to be known for violence of any kind.
Kenosha, Wisconsin has become an unwilling home to 2 tragedies, one stemming from the other. First, last Sunday, officials say 29-year-old Jacob Blake was shot in the back 7 times by Kenosha police officer Rustin Shesky. Blake, who's now paralyzed from the waist down, is recovering in the hospital. We've learned a new detail. Blake is being handcuffed to his hospital bed.
I don't know about you guys, but I've always known that violent criminals or people who are most likely to be violent and have been arrested are in hospitals recovering, are usually handcuffed to their bed. I understand he's possibly paralyzed now, but that doesn't mean he still can't act out and be violent.
At a press conference, Wisconsin Governor Tony Evers was asked if he was concerned Blake is being handcuffed.
Hell yes. I could. I would have no personal understanding why that would be necessary. Certainly, he's paid a horrific price already.
Of course you wouldn't know, because you got to play that part on the leftist narrative that the police are just bad individuals. And, being a governor, I feel like you would know the rules and laws of how your police treat victims and criminals when they're in the hospital recovering.
The Wisconsin Department of Justice is investigating the shooting. Officer Shesky has not been charged. Wisconsin Lieutenant Governor Mandela Barnes.
We don't need an investigation to know that Blake's shooting falls in a long and painful pattern of violence. And this is a pattern of violence that happens against black lives too often across this country.
It always concerns me when I see state leaders in government talking like this. They talk as if cops are just out shooting black people like they're hunting. They're not. 9 or 14 unarmed blacks were killed last year by cops out of the 700,000 cops in America. And what gets me is there's like 380 million encounters with the police every year, and only possibly 14 people were killed. You know what? I might actually believe it now, because considering, anything government does is just god awful. So yeah, he might have a point. But in all seriousness, it really does concern me that they talk about like a pattern of police just brutalizing and hunting down black people, but I just don't see it. Yeah, there are some bad police officers, and anybody who says otherwise is stupid, but not like this.
It's a history that Brandon Morris, a mentor and native of Kenosha, says African Americans live with every day.
Make sure you don't make any sudden moves when you're around police officers.
I'm gonna tell you guys like my parents told me growing up. You do not make sudden random movements around cops. You do not act indifferent to the general population. Why? Because people who do these things are the people that are usually high on something or are trying to hide something. And if you stick out like a sore thumb, the police are going to come looking at you. And when you're acting a fool and they stop and ask you questions, and then you act like a jerk, and they have reasonable suspicion that you're up to something or on something, then you're going to piss them off, and now you're going to have a problem. I mean, it's like the man on the interstate who got pulled over for speeding and then failed a sobriety test because he was acting a little funky. And then they got into a fight. The guy got up, ran to his car, pulled out a gun, and shot both police officers. I mean, these are the kind of people that CBS here is trying to defend and make out to be victims. I don't understand. We had a guy in my neighborhood walking through town at like 9 o'clock at night. Every 3 to 5 steps, he'd like twitch a little bit. You know, he would jump. I come back 5 minutes later going through town, and there's the police at the gas station with him on the ground in handcuffs, and they're going through his bag. This is not a black people only problem. This happens to everybody. And CBS is just out here making black people look like they're a victim when they're not. I mean, this happens to all races. And the fact that they are out here promoting blacks as if they should be afraid of police, it just sickens me, because there's no reason to fear police officers unless you have something to hide. I don't know why that's so hard for CBS to understand.
Make sure you're quiet when you're walking through a white neighborhood.
I don't know what this guy's problem is. I'm pretty sure he just probably hates white people at this point, and cops. Because you shouldn't be going through any other neighborhood acting a fool of any kind. And if you're going through a neighborhood that you don't live in or have never really been in before, don't be surprised when people look at you like, I've never seen this man before, or what he's doing in here. I go through black neighborhoods all the time, and people look at me strange. But no one has a problem with that. No one wants to talk about that, but we'll talk about the black guy who gets one look from a white man in his front yard as he walks by. I mean, personally, I'm not surprised that you got a strange look from other people in this neighborhood. You're not from there. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just you're a different person that's never been through the neighborhood before. I go through a black neighborhood, I get looked at weird. You go through a white neighborhood, you get looked at weird. You go through a white neighborhood white and no one's ever seen you before, and people are probably going to look at you a little differently. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just people don't know who you are. Now, if they're profiling you out singly because they're black and they say something about it, then yeah, that's different. But just because you get a few raised eyebrows at you walking through a neighborhood doesn't mean anything. If they see you walking through there every day for months, 10 to 1, they're not even going to care anymore. But you're making it out as if just because a black man walked through the neighborhood that there's going to automatically be problems if he does anything. No, that's not true. That's not true at all. I know black people in white neighborhoods that are accepted just like everybody else. But CBS here just makes it out as if being black in a white neighborhood's almost a crime in general America. And it's not.
So all those things are mental models that are built up where in the black community, our parents are teaching us these things because they want to protect us and they want us to be prepared.
Prepared for what? Prepared to be killed by police officers? Because that's just not happening. It's not happening at all. There was like 9 to 14 people, like I said before, that were shot and killed that were unarmed by police. It's just not happening. I don't see it anywhere. There are 700,000 cops, and possibly 14 black unarmed people were killed. And that doesn't even mean that they were all unjustified either. It's the fact that you are teaching your kids to fear the police, and that's just wrong. You're teaching your kids that the men there protecting you from other bad people are there to hurt you, and they're not. I don't understand where this is coming from. You're out here teaching your kids that you should feel afraid of the men in blue. That's the problem in the black community. Never mind that your child is more likely to die by another man his color. 90% of blacks are killed by other blacks. But you don't have a problem with that. I've talked to black people before that say they fear a black man way more than they do an officer. They go and they eat breakfast, they see an officer, they wave and say hi to each other in the morning, but you have these people in the ghetto teaching their kids that that same man is there to hurt their kid. And that's what's wrong. You have kids fearing the police when what they should be fearing is a person of their own race. because that kind of culture is taught and praised in the black community. And you can't tell me I'm wrong.
The second tragedy came Tuesday when 17-year-old Kyle Rittenhouse allegedly shot 3 people who had gathered to protest Blake's shooting. 36-year-old Joseph Rosenbaum and 26-year-old Anthony Huber were killed.
I'm going to tell you guys like it is. Kyle Rittenhouse wasn't the first person to shoot or attack anybody. He actually got maced. There was a Molotov cocktail thrown. And there was even a guy who fired before he even fired. You can see from this post from the New York Times that another man fired his weapon into the air. You can see it in the picture down below, the muzzle flash. And that when he looked over at him, another person lunged at him, and that he fired 4 times, I believe, into him, killing him with a headshot.
Hannah Giddings was Huber's girlfriend.
And it's just not fair that he had to die like that.
Now, what this article here doesn't mention is that her boyfriend, Anthony, charged at him and hit him in the head with a skateboard, along with another man who charged at him with a gun.
He just turned 26. We had plans for everything. We had plans for everything.
She said he was a sweet, loving, caring man in another interview, but that's just not true. Sweet, loving, caring men don't have domestic abuse charges, use of deadly weapon charges, battery, false imprisonment. I mean, they just don't have those kind of rap sheets. They also aren't out after curfew getting into fights with people and then hitting them in the head with a skateboard. You know, I don't think Rittenhouse should have been out there with a gun, but I also don't think they should have been out there causing trouble. Because Rittenhouse, I know, wasn't out there causing trouble. But those guys definitely caused trouble. You know, I don't wish him or the other man died, because I don't believe they did. But I'm not going to act like they are innocent people either. The other one has a sex offender charge. I'm not going to act like they are innocent individuals. Because a lot of people like to say the past shouldn't judge the present. But I, along with other people, definitely believe that your past definitely has an impact on your future. And if you're going to have a messed up past and then be out in a protest, which many of them in the nation are violent, I'm going to assume that you are probably still just as bad as you were back then. Now, I don't know if you go back to when these charges popped up, if they were dating, but I don't think she'd be saying the same thing she is now.
Well, after extradition, Kyle Rittenhouse is ultimately expected to face a judge here at the Kenosha County Courthouse. His attorney tells CBS News that he had the right to defend himself here on the streets of Kenosha.
I definitely believe it should be charged as self-defense. You don't lunge at somebody after gunfire goes off and then get mad when he shoots you. You don't hit him in the head with a skateboard and then get mad when he shoots you. You don't come after him with another gun and then get mad when he shoots you. It's not hard to understand. Now, from what I hear, his friend gave him the gun to help him defend the business. Now, whether that's legal or not in Wisconsin, I do not personally know. But if it was illegal for him to own the gun, then I see him being charged with possession of a weapon while under the age. But I do not see him getting charged with any kind of murder or any of that, because just because you have it illegally does not mean you couldn't use it to defend yourself.
Meanwhile, just this morning, the Wisconsin Department of Justice released the names of the other 2 officers involved in the Jacob Blake shooting, Officers Brittany Moronic and Vincent Arenas. All the officers involved in that shooting are currently on leave throughout the course of the investigation, Gail.
Mola, you said something interesting in your piece about Jacob Blake being handcuffed to a bed. Have you heard any explanation about why a man that doctors say is paralyzed has to be handcuffed to the bed?
Still unclear why. We know that he's paralyzed. We know that he's going to be in the hospital for some time, still undergoing surgery, so it's unclear to us why at this point he remains handcuffed. We have reached out to police, but at this point, police are not taking many questions from the media, Gail.
All right, Mola Lange, thank you very much.
I don't know about you guys, but it concerns me when the media is more concerned about a criminal being handcuffed to his bed while in the hospital than they are about the criminal's past records, the criminal's previous actions that got him there. I mean, he attempted to get into a vehicle at gunpoint with the cops with his kids are in there. I mean, whether he was getting in it to drive off, or getting in it to check on his kids, or getting in it to get a knife that was on the floor, it's wrong. And it should concern the media, but it doesn't. And that's what concerns me the most about articles like this. I'd just like to thank everybody for watching this video. If you would, please leave comments about things that I could do different, and also leave comments about other video news articles you would like me to do. But that's that. Thank you very much, and tune again next time. Thank you.